This video is sponsored by Saily. Are you thinking about booking your next trip, thinking about coming to Southeast Asia, maybe working remotely, maybe for an extended holiday? If you've had Phuket or Da Nang on your radar and are considering either, then this video is for you. We're going to talk about the costs, the general vibe of the place, what I think both places are suited for best, my honest opinion on which one I prefer, which one is best for working remotely, which one is best for a holiday, and much more. So if you're planning a trip to either the island of Phuket in Thailand or the coastal city of Da Nang in Vietnam, this video is for you. Let's get stuck in. First on this list is cost and commercialization. Phuket in recent times, the price has just increased and increased over the last few years. Thailand in general, the prices are increasing, but here in Phuket particularly, the property prices are increasing 20 to 30% year on year right now. Whereas Da Nang, the prices are increasing, the popularity of the place is increasing, but it's still very much affordable. You could still get a place monthly for under $500 quite comfortably, whereas in Phuket, especially in the high season, you're looking more at $2,000 to $3,000 for the month, if not more, for a one-bedroom apartment. If you're in the low season, like it is now, I've paid $800 for my apartment I'm currently in. However, that was a hard find and I had to dig around and do a bit of searching even for a one-bedroom apartment for $800. So in terms of cost, that's just highlighting the differences between the two. And the same translates into everyday life. If you're buying food, it's going to be a lot cheaper in Da Nang. You might find street food for $1, $2, $3. You might even eat at restaurants for $10 for two people plus a drink. Here in Phuket, that's not going to be the case. You're going to be paying a bit more. It's still very affordable. However, the price is a lot more when you are eating out and everything is just increasing that little bit more in Thailand than previously. There is a slight caveat to that though, which I'll get onto later on in the video, so stick around for that. In terms of commercialization, if you want more of an authentic experience, if you want to immerse yourself in the culture of the country, i.e. in Vietnam or Thailand, then Da Nang wins. Phuket doesn't really have that authentic Thai feel anymore and it feels more like a tourist hotspot. Nothing wrong with that, there's just a big difference. So if I was to pick one for authenticity and immersing myself in the culture, in the Vietnamese culture, it would be Da Nang. If I wanted more of a holiday and more options and lots of things that are related to being on holiday, I would want Phuket. In terms of daily life and ease of living, Phuket is going to be much easier to adapt to. You've got international supermarkets, massive gyms, and you've got lots of things that are catered for tourism. A lot more people speak English outside of hotels. You'll find a lot more Western restaurants, and just generally it will be easier to adapt to if it's your first time in this part of the world. In Southeast Asia, can be a bit of a culture shock if you're coming here for the first time. Maybe Phuket would be the better call in that case if you wanted to ease yourself in, because I think it's more easy to adjust to Phuket than it is to Da Nang. Now I'm going to do a more detailed cost of living breakdown of Phuket over a whole month, so I'm only going to touch on it vaguely here. And if you want my cost of living from Da Nang, I've got a video there, so go and check that one out if you want the specifics. But in terms of the overall cost, I was looking at around $1,300 to $1,500 US dollars for 1 month in Da Nang, whereas in Phuket I would be looking more like 2,000 and upwards. That could easily get to 2,300, 2,500 if you weren't in the cheapest accommodation and if you were eating in Western restaurants all the time, which I more often than not am. And if you're training in Phuket, the cost is much more expensive than the likes of Da Nang. In fact, training in Thailand in general is quite expensive, but here in Phuket, it's even more so expensive. Now, I could quite possibly tighten my budget here in Phuket to maybe 1,800 to 1,600 US dollars per month if I was tightening my budget. But if I was doing that in Da Nang, I could probably pull that budget down to like $900 to $1,000 a month if I was being really, really strict with my spending. That's not why I come to Southeast Asia, and I love the fact that my quality of living for a certain amount of money is so much better than what I would get, for example, in the UK. But Da Nang, in terms of cost of living, you're talking 50 to 100% possibly difference, maybe even more in some cases, being in Da Nang versus Phuket. Hello. Hello, mate. Yeah, no, I'm already online. No, I'm connected. Yeah, I'm using an app called Saily. Have you heard of it? This video is sponsored by Saily. Saily is a super convenient eSIM app that works in over 200 destinations. I just opened the Saily app, picked a local data plan, and boom, I was connected in less than a minute. Honestly, I wasn't sure how difficult it would be or if I needed to be super tech savvy to set it up, but it could not have been easier. No airport kiosks, no language barrier, no stress, straight online. This year I've traveled to 5 different countries. So if you were going to Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, Australia, you could actually pick a regional plan that covered all of them countries. One SIM, your entire trip, boom, no stress. You can track your data usage in the app so you know exactly how much you're using, and no physical SIM needs to be installed. With plans starting at less than $5, even if you're traveling just once a year, Saily is a solid option. Download the Saily app and use the code JOSHMOVE for an exclusive 15% off, or head to saily.com/JoshMove to get started. Thanks again to Saily for sponsoring this video. Another touch on the overall cost of living. Things like scooter rental are actually comparable in both places. You're going to pay a similar price, despite what people might say. If you've paid a much higher amount in Phuket, it's probably because you've gone to the wrong place or gone to a super popular place or got a super expensive bike. You're probably looking at between £90 and £140 here in Phuket, which is somewhere in the region of 120 to 160 US dollars. And you're probably paying, give or take, 10% the same in Da Nang. So just shop about if you are scooter hunting in either place, and you will find a good deal. And the same for food. If you do want to eat super local and save your money here in Phuket, it is possible. However, if you're in more popular places, it is going to be more expensive. The same goes for Da Nang, but the prices in general are lower in Da Nang, and you can really go out for like a nice meal, have 3 courses, few drinks, and come away with 2 of you for like 50 US dollars. Now let's talk lifestyle, fitness, fun. These are all integral parts of my life and they might be yours, but I'm going to cover a few things. So in terms of fitness, there's a huge fitness culture in both places. You're not going to be short of things to do in respect of sports and keeping fit and feeling like you blend in if that's part of your lifestyle. In Da Nang, it's more about running. It's more about general fitness. There's people training down at the beach. There's lots of gyms for a very affordable price. And pickleball is huge there. So if you're into your sports and want to start playing, there's a big pickleball community there, which is actually a pretty sick sport. So if you go, try it out. Now, in terms of the lifestyle fitness in Phuket, it can be very much polarizing. You could be in Patong and party all the time. You could be in Kata Karon and feel like you're on holiday. Or you could be in places like Rawai, Chalong, Bang Tao, and have lots of choices of gyms. In fact, per square mile, I would be shocked if there is anywhere on earth with more gyms per square mile in terms of martial arts. And Muay Thai is something I like to do and like to train. And being here in Phuket is 80% of the reason I come to Phuket is for Muay Thai. And for that, I don't think there's anywhere better in terms of options all around the island, which means that if that is something you want to do, you're going to be spoilt for choice here. Also, there's some CrossFit gyms here. There are some CrossFit gyms in Da Nang too, but you're just going to be spoilt for choice in Phuket. So I think Phuket wins in that case. However, it's not like Da Nang doesn't have any of that. Now, in terms of the lifestyle and the fun, the nightlife is probably better in Phuket. However, you're not short of it in Da Nang. It's probably underestimated how much nightlife there is in Da Nang. I also find when you are out on a night out, it feels less likely that you are to be scammed. The cost is cheaper for alcohol, for taxis and everything else. So despite there being a lot of nightlife here in Phuket, and it probably being one of the central hubs of nightlife in Southeast Asia, I would personally say Da Nang wins. Beer is cheap and the vibe is a little less clubby and a little more chill, which I prefer. If you want clubs though, and if you want a proper, heavy, full-blown night out, then Phuket will win and Patong area will win, hands down. Flipping that, sports bars, Phuket wins, especially with the UFC being played Every Sunday morning, you'll find multiple places round the whole island that are playing it. Being a big UFC fan, that's a huge perk. Let's talk about visa entry and rules. And even though we're talking about the whole country in terms of Vietnam versus Thailand in this section, there's a little bit of a focus on Phuket. The reason I say that is, even though in Thailand, currently as we speak, despite there being regular changes with visas and entry rules, right now as we speak, you get a 60-day stamp on arrival in your passport if you're from most of the countries that will be watching this video. However, sometimes you can get questioned and have a little bit of a hard time at immigration coming into Phuket airport. This can happen anywhere in Thailand, but in my experience, it tends to happen a little bit worse in Phuket. That being said, I had absolutely no issues this year. I got a few questions last year, but nothing too worrying, and I've been allowed in without issues both times. So some people have issues. Me personally, I haven't had any. Then in Vietnam, you get a 45-day visa on arrival. Then you can also get a 90-day e-visa online, meaning you don't have to leave the country for 90 days. And then when you do go, you can go and then come back. They do, however, have the digital nomad visa here in Thailand, the DTV. So that's worth looking into if you want to stay for longer. You can stay for 6 months at a time and renew it up to 5 years. In terms of weather, both places are tropical at times. They have varying climates. It just depends when you're coming. So I'm going to glaze over this bit, because if you're coming in January versus June versus September, October, the weather can be very different. So just look in terms of when you are going and see if that suits you. It is June currently here in Phuket, and outside the sun is shining right now. It's 6 p.m. However, earlier on today, it was some of the heaviest rain I've ever seen in my whole life. It is the wet season currently. It can be good some days, it can be bad some days. In Da Nang, it gets a bit cooler over the winter months, and it gets super hot during the hotter months, and it gets super wet during the monsoon months. Just look in to when you're going. In terms of internet infrastructure and accommodation, for me, Phuket wins. The reason that is, there's more choice of accommodation. There's condos, there's villas, there's apartments, there's all of that. And many of them come with gyms and pools. And even though some of the hotels in Da Nang have gyms, pools, there's not as many big condos and not as many places to choose from that tick those boxes. However, things are growing fast, and I'm sure in the near future that might change. But currently, as we speak, Phuket, in terms of accommodation, they win. And it's the same for infrastructure. Getting around in Phuket is super easy. Getting around in Da Nang is super easy. However, there's a lot more organisation in terms of the roads in Phuket. It can be dangerous at times, especially with so many different nationalities on the roads, driving scooters, going left, right, everywhere. However, there's a much, much more ordered way of driving here in Thailand in general, but in Phuket versus Da Nang. And personally for me, I prefer the driving style here in Thailand in general than I do in Vietnam. In Vietnam, it's just chaos. There's people coming from everywhere, and order is not quite something that I would use to describe the driving there. As great of a country as it is, the driving is mad. Internet is really good in both places, and that's something integral and important for me working remotely, so I need that to be stable. Not had any problems in Da Nang, not had any major problems in Phuket either. Eventually, if you stay in either country for long enough, I'm sure you'll experience some sort of blackout or power cut, which I have experienced, but it's very rare. It's not something to worry about. Internet is really good in both places. In terms of shopping malls and shopping in general, Phuket has bigger malls and more international shops. I didn't struggle getting most things in Vietnam, but there were some limitations. And that brings me on nicely to restaurants and choices. There's so many cafes and co-working spaces, good ones, in both places. I would say it's too hard to choose between them. There's so many nice cafes here in Phuket, and they're going up all the time. They're great to work from, good food. And there's so many cafes in Vietnam. If you're a coffee person, then Vietnam would win, hands down. The price is better and the coffee is better. If you are a food person, in my opinion, the food options are better here in Phuket. And there's so many Western restaurants to choose from as well. So you have all of the foods that you would like from back home, and then you have all of the Thai food. Thai food is definitely more flavoursome, but Vietnamese food is really good as well in its own right. It's just different. The thing I like about Phuket though is if you are training and looking to get in protein and carbs and nutrient-rich foods that you are used to eating, then you have a lot more options here in Phuket. There's so many restaurants that are related to fitness or health, and some of the ingredients that they use are really good as well. In terms of food, Phuket takes the win for sure. In terms of CAFs, it's definitely a draw, whether you're the coffee person for Da Nang or whether you are the food person for Phuket. Now, I think a couple of things that are worth noting is Phuket has loads of different options of areas to stay in. And whilst Da Nang has a few different areas, mainly it's a small area that is right by the beach that you will be staying in and most foreigners stay in. That's fine. However, in Phuket, you can get a different feel in about 4 or 5 different areas around the island. You can be in Patong, in the party area. You can be down in Rawai, which is a quieter area, has some gyms, has a little bit more of a calm vibe. The beach and the coast is right there. You have Chalong, which is the area with the fitness street, the famous street in Phuket that is built all around gyms and healthy eating restaurants. You have Phuket Town, which is the older part of Phuket and has its own unique charm as well. And then you have some places in the northeast that have a bigger Russian community, a lot of expats living there long term. So you have a lot of different looks depending on where you go around Phuket. Whereas in Da Nang, you have that main area right by the beach, and the rest of it is kind of a little bit more for the locals, or at least it's not where most foreigners live, which means it has less of the comforts of cafes, restaurants, etc. The airport in both places are well connected. You're just a short flight up to Bangkok, which then you can get around pretty much anywhere, and you're pretty well connected from here. Da Nang's a little less connected, but it doesn't take you long to either get to Bangkok, get to Ho Chi Minh, and then fly to many places from there, or get to Kuala Lumpur. The airport in Da Nang is about 15 to 20 minutes, and also you've got Hoi An just outside of Da Nang, which is very nice to visit, and a huge plus of actually being in Da Nang because it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and the place is really nice. It's definitely worth a trip. Phuket, you have tons of islands and you can do lots of excursions. You can go to Phi Phi Islands, you can go to Krabi, you can go to Koh Samui from here pretty easily. You can go to Similan Islands. There's lots of things to do from Phuket, and there's a lot more things to do in general in Phuket that will keep you busy for weeks or months in terms of activities. Overall, they're both amazing places and options. It would be so difficult to choose just one and say this is much better than the other. If you want cost of living, it's going to be Da Nang. If you want a more authentic experience, it's going to be Da Nang. If you want to meet people, it's probably slightly easier to in Da Nang, in my opinion. However, if you want to train Muay Thai, if you want fitness, if you want the feeling of being in arm's reach of paradise beaches and beautiful excursions and want to feel like you're on holiday, then I think Phuket definitely wins on that front. If you want lots of choices of restaurants and Western food, they both have it, but Phuket again will win that one. It would be so difficult for me to choose between the two. I love Thailand and it's always hard for me to choose away from Thailand and say I prefer anywhere but Thailand. And Phuket is amazing. It's very touristy nowadays. It's very geared towards foreigners and tourism and westernized. However, with that comes a lot of perks. You have a lot of restaurants, you have the malls, you have so many things here that make adjusting to life super easy and so many options. Da Nang, however, the experience of being there, meeting others, having the beach right there on your doorstep, having Hoi An down the road, it's an amazing place too. I 100% will spend plenty of time in both places. I will not pick between, but if I had to, I would choose one or the other based on the things I've said, depending on what I wanted from the trip and that period of time. If you can, try both. If you can't, pick one. Hopefully this video has helped. Guys, if you've enjoyed this video, or if you've got any input about both places, if you've been there or if you plan to go there, please let me know in the comments. What's your experience has been like? Has it been similar to what I've explained, or has it been something totally different? And just a reminder, go to saily.com/JoshMove for a 15% exclusive discount off your next Saily eSIM. If you haven't already and you found value in this video, please hit the subscribe, and until the next one, peace.